United We Om is a 501c3 nonprofit sharing accessible yoga and meditation with trauma-impacted and under-resourced communities. All of our workshops and trainings are offered by donation with no minimum donation. And your donation directly supports our mission of making the benefits of practice available to everyone. Thanks to supporters like you, we've continued to provide practice virtually throughout the pandemic. Learn more and support our work at unitedweom.org. Thank you.
The specificity of what we express and what we feel will take something that's like very general in our lives and make it new over and over and over again. Now, why don't we sit in meditation? As tall as you can, as broad as you can, as comfortable as you can, right? And there's this like threshold. You want to sit so tall without being rigid. You want to sit broad without being forceful, and comfortable without crossing over the threshold of lazy. Just take a few breaths to touch base. To check in. To remember that you're breathing. To realize or remind yourself why you're here. And then just start to bring into focus something you feel grateful for. If you recall what it's like to play with a camera that doesn't do all the work for you, might take some adjustments, the lighting, the aperture. Adjust your lens so whatever that thing is that comes into focus becomes very clear, something you feel grateful for. You're going to start to zoom in. Zoom in and just trace some detail in your mind. Right, really bring this picture to life. High def, vibrant colors, details around this thing that you feel grateful for. Is there a smell, a sound, a color, a behavior, a time of day, certain lighting? Breathe it in. And just stare at this picture in your mind. Another breath or two. And take that clear, sharp, focused, vibrant picture of gratitude. Just take your hands to your heart, hold it close, like you'd hold a picture that you just loved so much. Let your hands drop, let your head lift. When you're ready, your eyelids open. If you've got a journal and a pen or pencil close, take the next minute, just a minute, to write down whatever this thing was that came into view. I am grateful for, but add the detail. Okay, it's going to be more important later in the conversation. Add some of the detail. What became vivid? In just a minute. And when you're ready, you'll just put the instrument down and look up. So we're briefly going to recap last week because it's the bedrock for what we continue to discuss tonight and the grand finale and the fireworks next week. Gratitude is not easy to define because it is so vast. It is so big that in the dictionary, thankful, appreciative, appreciation, thankfulness, gratitude, and grateful are all used interchangeably to define the very word that it's defining. Hi, Eleni, in Kentucky. It's massive. It's vast. And as research has started to extract its goodness, the questions have arisen. Is it a virtue? Is it a value? Is it a behavior? Is it a practice? Is there a set point? Is it movable? And the answer is D, all of the above. It is a feeling, it is an emotion. It's a habit, it's a behavior, it's something we act on, which in the ancient samurai code is the definition of virtue. Not just a value, which is a belief, but a virtue, according to the samurai code, is a value in action, lived out through your behaviors. Your gratitude is all of these things. And although gratitude immeasurably, but also quantifiably increases happiness and a sense of well-being, what the F is well-being. We'll talk about that in a moment, right? Another one of those very loose, vast, but obvious, intuitive terms, right? Increases happiness and well-being, and raises your vibration and enhances your positivity. it's also not mutually exclusive to life's sufferings and challenges. In fact, both happiness and gratitude have been proven to not be circumstantial. It's usually one of those like, whoa, whoa, whoa moments. What do you mean my happiness isn't circumstantial? It's really hard to be grateful sometimes when the circumstances are what they are. But what we talked about last week that is an important foundation of the practice and the power of gratitude is that it exists like ether. That's our daughter's name, our 2.5-year-old. Akasha means ether. And according to the ancient Hindu scripts, that means the invisible matter that permeates all things. So in our Western English language and our need to define simply, like everything for dummies, wine for dummies, philosophy for dummies, like we just try to define so simply, we call Akasha or ether space, but it's not, because it's matter. And gratitude is a type of practice that permeates all things, exists within all things. And it was very important for me to land this last week, and will continue probably till the end of my days to be important for me to land this. That is not independent of life's joyful situations and happiness and the positive circumstances, but gratitude exists within all situations, all circumstances. Suffering, exhaustion, fatigue. The word came up last week over and over again, weary, right? And yet, there's gratitude. Challenged, and yet there's gratitude. We were reminded of the ancient Greek definition of happiness, the feeling of joy one experiences when moving towards their potential. And I'll speak a lot about happiness and gratitude because they're two hands that wash one another. And ultimately, if not a pleasant life, then what, right? And the other thing we did last week is we really discussed the fact that gratitude and empathy, gratitude and challenge, gratitude and suffering, gratitude and joy are all partners and exist within one another. We sat back and we counted on our blessings. The 3 blessings exercise was a very specific exercise in positive psychology research created by Martin, good old Marty Seligman, who's the founder of positive psychology, which is an entire arena of science and research around the mind and our state of fulfillment and joy. So we worked on our 3 blessings. I will not, yeah, I might put you on the spot. Do we remember how to raise a hand? Why don't we raise a hand, whether it's physical, because your camera's on, or in the corner? Did you engage in the 3 blessings exercise over the last week in any way? I get a thumb, I get a hand, I get 2 thumbs, 2 thumbs, and I'm going to assume the best for everyone else. I've got a thumb from Sarah Marie and her lotus flower. So 1 or 2 people just speak up, unmute, and share a little bit about the experience of looking back on your day, every day for the last week, and reflecting on and capturing those 3 blessings. Eleni.
You know, I'm always willing to speak, but I try to hold space so other people can too. I think what I found was that the blessings were very small and subtle that I appreciated, but also that as I was doing it every day, it just became easier. It wasn't just three. It was like I thought of three, and then I was like, still, you know, that happened. But then throughout the day, it just kept coming to me. So that was something I observed. And also, you know, being that the reality of things being hard, I noticed that I had those hard moments, but they were easier to bounce back from. So those were my observations.
Thanks. Textbook research. One more person. Nala, were you going to unmute?
Yes. Actually, I had a similar, I sat down to write 3 blessings. And the first day I sat down to do it after your lecture, I found myself having 3 pages of, I just could not stop writing down the blessings that kept, the feelings that kept coming to me as a blessing. So it's just like, it was crazy. I started with 3 and I end up with 3-4 pages. So, and just, what a blessing.
Thanks, Nala.
Thank you.
Can we do one more?
I'll jump in real quick and just sort of second what Eleni and Nala said, but there's an inertia that starts to occur. And whether, you know, I'm putting my thoughts sort of on the positive or the negative, that's itself a judgment. But when I start really spinning down that blessings path, the gratitude becomes almost overwhelming. It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. It is fantastic. You know, we said it last week. It's not a quick fix, and it's not a sugar coating and a silver lighting on all things, except actually, it also is. Right? It's like upgrading your operating system. So what is gratitude? Is it an emotion? Is it a feeling? Is it a virtue, a behavior, a practice? It's all of these things. It's important. I'm going to say it again. And it exists when things are hard, and exists when we're fatigued, and exists if we just give ourselves a moment to sit back and really see. And it doesn't matter how grand. I won the lottery. I'm really excited for winning the lottery. I didn't actually, but maybe I'll just speak it into existence. Or my pillow was like cold and fluffed at the end of the day, and soft for me to rest a very weary head. My coffee was the perfect color, which means there's the perfect amount of milk and sweetness, right? It can be so tiny and granular. But you know what? If there's a pebble in your shoe for long enough, something even so granular will make a massive difference, right? So what's this difference that's happening inside of us? I am going to read this. Appreciation is the act of acknowledging the goodness in life. This is another like textbook definition, acknowledging the goodness in life. But as we talked about this last week, as scientists and researchers and psychologists have come together and said, well, what is it really? How do we define this ether, this ethereal or everywhere vast concept? Gratitude recognizes that the positive things in our lives are often due to forces beyond our control, outside of ourselves. Psychology research has shown that something really cool happens when you like bow down. You're like, I did nothing to do this, receive this, feel this way. The leaves are golden because they're golden. And when I really look at them, they're golden for me. And I feel immense gratitude, right? Like Sarah just said, for the colors of fall. Oh, none of us had anything to do with those colors. We're just lucky we're still existing long enough. We made it, guys. You made it to November 2020. Congratulations. You're now a Navy SEAL. Right? That's how much endurance it took to get here. But we're here. We're looking at these beautiful colors, and they have nothing at all to do with us. There's very distinct firing in the brain, like firing in the brain. So as there are all these neighborhoods in the brain, and each neighborhood wears its own like jacket. I'm responsible for this, and I'm responsible for this, and I'm responsible for this, right? Areas of the brain fire when a message of gratitude is written, whether it's delivered or not. You ever have that moment where you respond to someone in your phone, man, I love you so much, but you don't press send because whoops, you've got 52 other things on your brain in that 1 second. And you're like, oh my God, Eleni in Kentucky, I swore I messaged you back 3 months ago when you messaged me, and I wrote the message that I love you so much. And I felt so good and high over it because I do love you so much, but I didn't press send. Anyone else ever do that? Or no, I'm not the only one responding to messages and not pressing send. But here's the thing, we actually feel good. The brain fires. Positive areas of the brain fire when we simply express gratitude, whether it's delivered, whether the message is delivered or not. I feel good when I write it, because when I write it, it means I'm thinking of you or this thing that lifts me, that moves me, that I'm lucky to have in my life beyond my control. I don't know why you moved here and we ended up in the same geography, but because you did, I know you and I love you. And we feel that for one another, for the things that stumble into our lives. It's amazing. Well-being. What is well-being? A general feeling of being well, right? A whole industry. There's a whole massive, like mega billion-dollar industry based on wellness, and no one can even put their finger on what it means. In fact, I'll tell you, the definition of wellness is actually, I found it like super weak. Super weak. I was actually disappointed to read it. And I'm going to read it to you when I can find it in all my wild notes. Because I wrote something snarky. A state of being comfortable, happy, and healthy. It was so nondescript, I couldn't find it on my page of notes. And by the way, I write like a child with a crayon when I'm writing notes to lecture on, so I don't miss anything. However, it's so nondescript. Gratitude increases well-being. What is well-being? A state of being comfortable, happy, and healthy. That's like weak, right? We can do better. We can do better. So within well-being, gratitude boosts your immune system. Less illness, more resilience. Resilience is the bounce back that Eleni talked about. It's the bounce back. You know, an active practice of gratitude reworks your brain. It rewires your brain. It's been shown that people who express, like part of these research studies on effects of gratitude show changes in the brain 3 months out, 3 months after. Let's say it's a daily 2-minute text, which we're going to work on next week. A daily 2-minute, thank you for this, I'm really grateful. Thank you for this, I'm really grateful. And by the way, not like thank you vague. Thank you specific. I read an article, I love the way they put it. They thank you for the pancakes. Like gratitude when specific stays always new and fresh. Always new and fresh. Thank you for the pancakes. Thank you for the way you tell me this one thing that means so much to me. Thank you for the way that you remember me and send me pictures of your new baby. Right? Not just thank you for you, Lauren. And thanks for reaching out. Thank you for doing this specifically. The specificity of what we express and what we feel will take something that's like very general in our lives and make it new over and over and over again. Not just thank you for Akasha's voice, but today when I asked her, Akasha, are your shoes on for school? She said, not yet, mommy. And she had to think, like, how do I put these two words together and what do they mean? So tonight when I write, not just thank you for my daughter, like thank you for my, of course, thank you for my daughter. That's, of course. But what specifically? Thank you for Akasha's voice and the way she put together, not yet, mommy. So tomorrow night, when I thank my lucky stars, I'm grateful for whatever else she did. It's something new. It's not just I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my family. I'm grateful for my family. And as we talked about this last week, as we train the mind to seek out things to be grateful for, we change the operating system, right? Anyone have, the last time you upgraded your phone, they're like, fixes bugs. Make sure your microphone doesn't drop. Make sure your mood is better. We're upgrading our operating system over and over again. You know what an operating system is? It's a default way of being, which is really quite incredible. Oh, Shalini, that's awesome. Right, it's incredible. Nala, you said you just let it roll. Matt, you mentioned the way as you start to like really sit, even if it's the tiny little granular things, it rolls and it rolls and it rolls. And all of a sudden you have a new operating system. You have a new default way of being and seeing your world. Right? You know what that does for you? Resilience. And that resilience is not only your immune system, right? Research has shown your immune system is more resilient. You get sick less, period. So it's like COVID protection. But also, it decreases depression. When I read this fact that gratitude as an active practice decreases depression, I also felt called to like rework and reword that it increases your resistance to depression. Right? Because really, no one is immune entirely to feeling low. Depression is long states of low with varied depth, depending on brain chemicals, but also depending on actions, your operating system. So it's not only less depression, it's also, and it's more resistance to and resilience from depression when it hits, the bounce back. You know, it's been shown that people who are grateful give 20% more of their time and money. Isn't that incredible? To be more generous because you're grateful. And you know what's more important? Here's the thing. If you had a friend, if you were moving on Sunday, you had a friend, they were like, I'll just pay for the truck to move you. Or you had a friend who showed up with egg sandwiches at 6 o'clock in the morning, what would feel more valuable? A or B? Egg sandwiches, for sure. For sure. One of our best friends just passed away a few weeks ago. Suddenly, overnight, not fair, not right, no explanation. You can ask. And one of our happiest memories of his generosity and his impact on our life was moving us 6 weeks apart. We made one move. It was a big error. It was a haunted house. We had to move again. Both times. I know, 6 weeks later. We'll save that story. Both times. Both times our friend Paul showed up at 6 o'clock in the morning with egg sandwiches, manpower, and time. People who practice gratitude, grateful people, are generous people. And generosity matters. And it matters far beyond ourselves and the act between the giver and the receiver. Because there have been scientific studies that show that someone watching a generous act feels better. Someone who just witnesses an act of giving, and they're not the giver nor the receiver, will feel a boost of dopamine, a chemical surge in their body that makes them feel good, that makes them feel alive, that makes them feel joyful. Can you believe that? Just witnessing an act. No man is an island unto himself. Thank you, Hemingway. 20% more generous with their time and money if they're grateful. Isn't that beautiful? You know, Abraham Maslow is the psychologist who's been credited with the school of humanistic psychology. So Maslow's hierarchy of needs was his creation. What do we need as humans? Like what is our basic function? Relationship. We need to know that we're a part of the whole. Basic human need, like feel heard and seen and understood. We can't do that when we feel isolated, right? It's impossible to have that basic need of feeling heard and understood and accepted and embraced as Matt wears a shirt that says tribe, right? And we're reminded that we are like tribal beings. It's impossible to have that basic human need satisfied if we feel isolated. And yet it shows that people who are grateful, who practice gratitude, who see the world through the lens of gratitude, have an operating system that defaults to seeing good even in the granular, even on the worst of days. They have stronger relationships, stronger human ties. You know, feeling consistent positive emotion adds up to 7 years of life. That's like I mean, Alia is not even 7 years old. Alia is my oldest daughter, if you're wondering, just for context. She's not even 7 years old. I swear she could take the keys to the car and drive herself to school. She could totally plan parties on her own. She is all of these things by not even 7. 7 years is a long time. And it's been proven that those who feel more positive emotions can live up to 7 years longer. Gratitude is a tool for longevity. It's a tool for human connection. It's a tool for immunity. It's a tool for resilience. And this is not my opinion. There's research coming out of Berkeley. There's research coming out of Harvard. There's research for 40 years of positive psychology that's showing these things. If you're grateful, you're happy. If you're happy, you're up to 31% more productive in your daily life. You accomplish more. You contribute more. So as we engage in these simple, I mean, unless you're Nala, you roll into 3 pages of gratitude, which, by the way, I tell my husband often, it would be easier for me to write a novel than it would for me to write a newsletter. Because once it starts to roll, it rolls, right? But even just those tiny 3 things, these were my blessings today, that, wow, this came into my life. I don't know why or how, but it did. And I'm grateful. And this happened. Those 3 little things that you've scanned through your days for the last 7 days have changed your operating system. And even if you don't do it again tonight and tomorrow and next week, research has shown that the change in your brain remains. In some research studies, up to 3 months after the study is done. And some of these studies are brief, right? Harvard's meditation study was only 8 weeks long, and it showed changes to the gray matter in our brain. And those changes compound over time. Why? Because as your operating system lifts, you don't fall back. You have something to keep building upon and building upon and building upon. So these are some of the changes that are happening in our cells, in our brain, in our mind, and in our health that are proven, that are researched right now when we engage in simple practices of gratitude. We make more, we give more. We bounce back faster. We have more quality, stronger relationships. And all that comes from appreciation, the act of acknowledging the goodness in life, gratitude, recognizing that the positive things in our lives are often beyond ourself. It's a good time for a temperature check. Any questions so far? Any comments so far? Anything strike you? Lauren.
For the definition of well-being, of it being so vague, and I was trying to think of what to add on to that. And I feel like if you're in a state of being in a well-being, it's also being able to focus and face the negative in your life. So yes, to be healthy and happy, but also to be alive. And that's what I took from last week with checking our vitals, is really accepting and loving all the emotions that come to us, whether that's, especially feeling uncomfortable or all those emotions that come rushing in. I think being able to sit with that and being able to digest it and be grateful for it is part of being in a well-being state.
That's so powerful, Matt. That might be our next series, right? Redefining well-being, because that is just so weak. State of being comfortable, happy. And and healthy. That sounds like you're on a reclining big fat old armchair in your living room, right? But alive and resilient. Now that's well-being, being well, capable, able, equipped, your operating system functioning well, right? I love that you bring that up, Lauren. Alive. So what can we do? Right, that 3 blessings exercise is a really great intro. And my suggestion is that it doesn't end just because week 2 begins. And if I never see you and your beautiful smile or see your name on the screen again, it doesn't end here, right? I don't possess this information. So I suggest it continue in some way. And now we're going to go back to those opening moments of our time together today. Right? So if you were there for the ice-breaking meditation, pull your journal out or your notebook out. And if you weren't, totally cool, and give you just a little recap. We focused on one thing that we're grateful for in just a 2-minute meditation. And then we really sharpen the detail. And we really sharpen the detail. And what I suggest as you move forward and continue your gratitude writings is that you sharpen some of the detail. I work with a 10-year-old girl who suffers from severe anxiety. I work with her weekly. She is my greatest teacher. She's so brilliant because she's unfiltered. There's not all these years of life experience and all these years of interpreting her life's experiences and all these years of being in her head like we have as adults trying to undo that. She's brilliant. And tonight she wrote for 3 minutes straight. She wanted to write a story, so we wrote a story. 3 minutes, she didn't lift her pen from this piece of paper. And the whole thing was about what school would be like if she practiced gratitude in every class. She didn't know I was doing this. It was like totally unprompted. But in 3 minutes, she wrote a whole story. And that's the point. It doesn't take long for you to do this, for you to scan your day for those blessings. This was really good in my life today. This was really good in my life today. And this is why it came to be. But now we're going to layer something else in. Is as you write gratitude, you got to sharpen the detail. For 2 reasons. To keep it new and fresh. To keep it new and fresh in the brain, in the mind, in the heart. And the brain and the mind are like, they overlap, but they're not one and the same. Okay, the brain is very mechanical and the mind is very vast. If I say every night, I'm thankful for my family, I'm thankful for my family, I'm grateful for my family, it's a beautiful thing, right? It's a beautiful thing. I totally am. But at a certain point, you write that down, you're like, yeah, of course I am. And it doesn't hit you anymore. Because that's what we do. We adapt. The new car smell wears off. You move near an airport and you hear it, planes as they take off and land, and then one day you don't hear them anymore. Right? We adapt. That's called the reticular activating system. There is a mechanism in the brain that actually says, okay, seen it, done it, I know it's safe, I gotcha, fade to back. But if every day I write something specific that I'm grateful for about my family, something new, something tiny, but something new and specific. My brain is filing these things as new things, and more things. And there's a power to that. Right? So as you step forward from tonight, you're going to paint some detail. Not enough, just enough to distinguish, to make distinctions, and to take all of these little granular things and make them all hold their own. Does that make sense? And then we talked about it before. So I'm citing everything. We've gone from ancient Greece to the Hindus, to Buddha, to Seligman and the Bible. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition, and with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. In the Bible, this is Philippians 4:6. Now, I don't care what your definition of God is, ether, universe, nature, or very specifically, if you read BKS Iyengar, he speaks of the Lord often. I don't care what your definition of that thing that's bigger than you is. But gratitude is an acknowledgement that the good things in your life are not all of your doing, making, and control, right? They come from a bigger source, like the golden leaves. But I love this verse specifically because as nouns, petition is a written request made to an official person or organized body. And if a written request, there's something very powerful about writing. And prayer, by definition, is a practice of communicating with one's version of something bigger than themselves. There's one thing to think it and it's one thing to speak it, but there's value and power to what Sean Achor calls doubling down, writing. It makes the memory new again, and then the detail makes the distinction. So the brain reads it as new. And all of a sudden you're like saturated with gratitude. So as we move forward from tonight, 3 blessings, you can continue, absolutely continue in perpetuity, like forever. Add some detail. I'm grateful for Akasha's not yet mommy. I'm grateful for something specific. And every day that you do this is a day that you condition your brain, your psyche, and the lens that you see the world through, to be seeking out even the granular, the tiniest, the most seemingly insignificant things to be grateful for. You're upgrading your operating system. And just to recap, well-being, your happiness, your resilience, your immunity, your connections to others, your relationships, your generosity, your sense, how you give of yourself, your time and your money, your productivity, how you contribute to the world. They all increase as you upgrade your operating system through gratitude.